Hey, it's your girl Stacey Joanna, and today I am going to do just a simple everyday look, some quick makeup. But really, what came on my spirit today to actually even come on YouTube and make this video is not essentially it's not really what I planned. But God put on my spirit to kind of talk about marriage or not marriage, but rather being young and getting married. So let's get into that. So I'm 24 years old and I recently just got married. Yay! I know it's very exciting and I'm very excited about it. So actually been married for about a month and 2 days. I've been married for about a month and 2 days, and it's been a really good, so far it's been really good, a really good experience. Well, let's not say experience because it's for life, with God's grace. But it's been really interesting being a wife. And although I will say that my situation is a bit different than the traditional marriages as far as getting married, moving in with your spouse, and all that good, lovely stuff. Mine didn't happen that way, but I guess that's a story for another day. But what God really put on my spirit to talk about was basically making a decision at such a young age, right? So me and my husband, we're engaged since 2014, and I just got married May of 2018. So that goes to show that I've been engaged for 4 years. And I know a lot of people might be like, oh sis, that was a long engagement, and why were you guys engaged for that long, and I wouldn't have done it, and this and third. But it was we were both students. He was in medical school, I was in college and university, and we just loved each other, and he proposed to me and I said yes. But the timing wasn't the best, right? Because we're both in school, and mind the fact he doesn't even go to school in the United States of America, and I go to school in the United States of America, or I was in school in the United States of America, so it wasn't easy, right? So that's why we got married after 4 years of being engaged, and I will say that it was a blessing, right? Because it taught us a lot. Not only did it taught us a lot, but we made sure that we were making the right decision. And that's really what I came to talk about today. It's okay, yeah, you were engaged for 4 years, so I'm pretty sure when you got married, right? I'm pretty sure when you got married, you were set in stone, 100% sure. There was no worries. The year of getting married, you were just yep, it's just time. Let's jump in. And in reality, it really wasn't. It was when I had my date all set up, and I had my vendors paid and all that good stuff. That's when a lot of the questions start rolling in, and it was more spiritual questions rather than questions about him or things like that. It was just is this what God really wants for me? Is this the person that he truly chose for me? Am I not, making a mistake because I am so young? I'm only 24, right? And I haven't really been in a lot of relationships, and I know I love him now, but will I love him forever? And will he love me forever? So these were all the questions that were coming in. And am I not running the risk of potentially having a harder relationship getting married now that I'm 24 as if I got married, or when I got married if I was 30 or something? So a lot of questions came along with it. And then I will say that while I had a very, very supportive family, there is a lot of doubt that comes with being so young, being married, and people questioning, or are they really ready? Are they really sure? And and maybe even that causes a bit of fear even. So really the point of the video today is I just kind of want to talk to you guys about kind of the steps that I took to make sure that the man that I chose to marry, I was set in stone, right? It's set in stone. I know that's the man that God chose for me. I know that I'm not of course there's going to be hardships, right? Because there's no relationship without hardships. There's no such thing as marriage without hardships. Why? Because it is something that God put in place that the devil doesn't like, essentially, right? Because it's a union, a commitment, something that God ordained. So once you gotten married, the devil really don't like that, right? Essentially. So, but I know for a fact that mine will succeed and it will do great things and we will be together forever, and that my husband is my husband, not gonna be my husband forever. So well, I guess I'm kind of rambling, but the point of it is basically this is how I knew. So it was close to the day, and we're working hard, we're getting everything planned out, we're trying to figure things out, what we want our cake to look like and all the fun stuff, right? Because with marriage comes a lot of fun things. Like there's a lot of fun that comes with planning your wedding. And might I add, with God's grace, I had a beautiful wedding in the islands. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that come along with planning a wedding, but there's a lot of spiritual warfare that comes with planning a wedding as well. So the first thing I kind of went into when I was planning a wedding, and I was getting advice from a lot of great people, like our young adults pastor and my sisters, and people who really loved us and really cared about us. And the first thing I kind of went into when I was getting married was maybe not the smartest route, right? Maybe not the smartest route. It was like more of thinking and questioning him. Like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Do you realize, like, once we get married, this is it? In the sense that, you don't really have that option of wanting to just be like, oh no, this isn't for me. Or, are you sure? Because you're only 25, you're a young man, you have everything ahead of you. And so do I. So I kind of want to be sure that this is really what we want, essentially. And he was like, yes. And I will say this, like, we come from very different backgrounds, and maybe this is going to be a story for a different time, but we come from very different backgrounds. Like the family that he was brought up, my family was very different. Like we grew up in different environments. So his fear, like the fears that he had, or the fears that I had, actually were not fears that he had. Like those were not things that worried him as much as they worried me. I will say this, like I am from a background from like divorced parents. Like my parents were divorced when I was really young, and he's not. Like till this day, his mom and dad are still together and like madly in love and all that good stuff. So it was just not the same. So I thank God that, he blessed me with a very understanding and good husband. So he was really understanding of where I was coming from with all the crazy questions. Not crazy, rather, but just questions of wanting to be secure and safe and, know what's ahead of me and stuff like that. And he was really understanding, and he answered all my questions. Don't matter if I asked him those questions 1,000 times already. So, I'm grateful for that. But what I was saying was that was the first route that I took, which in reality, wasn't the best route, right? Being a Christian, knowing the word of God, because people lie. And I thank God that, I didn't meet somebody that would lie to me, but people lie. When someone wants something or when they feel some type of way, they'll say whatever, even if it's not, what they truly feel, or without even thinking about it, they'll say whatever essentially to get what they want, right? So that was the best route, because I shouldn't have, trust. That couldn't be like my only reason to jump into it or truly believe that it would be something and all that good stuff. So then I spent a few months of that. Like it was a few months on the phone of asking, like, are you sure? It was a few months on the phone of asking, like, are you sure this is what you want? Like, it's me and, no one else, and that's what it's going to be, and And he's like, yeah, every day it was the same thing. And something like one time I was having a conversation with my sisters, and one of my sisters actually said to me, like, Stacey, I know you're getting married soon. I don't know if you know this, but you should be fasting, right? And I said, you're absolutely right. Right. So that was the second thing I jumped into. I jumped into fasting. Okay, so let me explain this. A lot of people think that fasting is just, restricting your body from things that you just put in your mouth, right? While that is a form of fasting. Form of fasting is, just restricting your body from things that you put in your mouth. But there's other forms of fasting, like the fasting that I chose was actually not just restricting myself from like putting things in my mouth, because I was already on like no sugar and all that good stuff. But I wanted to do something that I thought would be a little bit more difficult for me. Actually, what I gave up was my bed. And I gave up my bed for a whole year and some change, to be honest. Like I was on the floor for a whole year and some change. And in the beginning, to be honest, I gave up my bed. I was fasting physically, but the ideal of fasting is not only giving up something that you truly love or something that's difficult for you to do, but it's also the prayer that goes along with it, right? So fasting comes with prayer. So while you're giving up that item that you're no longer eating, or that thing that comfort, which is what I did, I gave up the comfort, my nightly comfort. I wasn't praying with it. Like I would pray, like my always prayer, like thank you God and all that. And I was praying, but I wasn't praying like when you're fasting on something, you're constantly praying on whatever it is that you're fasting. You're constantly bringing that to God. You're constantly, telling God, like, listen, I need for you to work this out for me. Like, and I need for you. And that's not what I was doing. Like, I gave up my bed, but I was still on the phone. Like, listen, you sure this is what you want? And da 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 da. Wow. Something came into my spirit one night, and it was like, well, yeah, I see that you're giving up your comfort, but that's not really what fasting is. Like, you ain't really said much about what you're fasting about. Like, you need to bring it to God in prayer. So that's what I started to do. I started praying on it. When I tell you I was praying hard, man, I was praying hard. Not only when I was in my bed, I was praying when I was driving to work. I was praying in church. I was praying every moment while I go on my morning walks. I'd be praying on that while I'm listening to gospel, going on my morning walks. I'd be praying on it, just like really interceding and just like, God, tell me something, confirm it for me. Although, yeah, we've been engaged for 4 years, but being engaged, as you guys may already know, being engaged is not the end all be all. Like a lot of people has gotten engaged and maybe their relationship wasn't the most successful, or they ended up not being married, and it happened. So being engaged and him asking for my hands in marriage wasn't the end all be all. So I did have to fast and say, God, I really want you to show me that this is the man that you chose for me. Like, show me, tell me, and a lot of people may say, like, give me a sign. And really, that's good too, right? God can give signs, but God also speaks too. So I really wanted for God to tell me, like, this is it. Like, don't be afraid. Don't worry. This is it. So that's what I was praying for. And I got to a point that I was praying, and to be honest, God answered me quickly. Quickly. Like, yes, this is the man that I chose for you. You guys are going to do great things, and you can, get married in comfort and be happy and trust that you don't have any worries or anything. So, but even so, it's like I still wanted to be extremely sure. I still wanted to continue praying on it, continue praying on it, because as Christians, just as Christians and people are following God, but we also have a flesh that desires something, right? So I loved him. So I desired that too. I wanted to marry him. And sometimes you can do this. Like sometimes you can allow yourself to think that you have heard something, or because it's something that you want to. It's not like he only wanted to marry me. I wanted to marry him too, which is why clearly I said yes. So the idea was I wanted to be sure that it just wasn't my desire to marriage, like my desire that I really wanted to marry him too, but it's truly what God wanted. So I wanted constant confirmation, right? Or not rather constant confirmation, but multiple different confirmations. I wanted to just be entirely sure that this is God telling me yes. It's not my subconscious. It's not because I want to marry him and all this, but it's God. So while I was fasting, I continuously fast, even after I received my answer. I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't another spirit. It wasn't my subconscious telling me, because it's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be extremely sure. So I kept on praying, and I kept on fasting, and I kept on worshiping, and I kept on bringing it to God. Well, I even got to a point and I said, you know what? I want to talk to my, sorry guys, it's wing liner. Yeah, I know how these wing liners are. So let me pause. So I wanted to talk to a spiritual leader. So I went to church one Sunday, and I found our young adults pastor and his wife, and I just told him, I was like, I'm getting married soon, and I just want to be sure that I'm making the right decisions. Just want to be sure that I've decided, I didn't make this decision on my own, but it was truly God's desire and God wanting this for me. And he was like, okay, well, what would make you doubt that? And I was really honest, and not the fact that there was nothing that would make me doubt it, because he's a really great guy. He's a wonderful man of God. Even being with him has brought me a lot closer to God. So it's nothing about him, but of course it's about the stories. It's about the stories that you hear about marriage and the divorce rate. And being from the family that I'm from, marriage is not something that's really prevalent in my family, or it's not something that's really common in my family. Like, people, not the fact that we don't get married, we get married. It's the fact that we don't stay married, right? So that's really what I wanted to be sure about. And I kind of, I explained all to him, and he kind of had like the same story as me. And he kind of told me how even when he was getting married, he had a lot of doubters. Even he, said that, there's going to be a lot of doubt. There's going to be, even if it's not you doubting, but there's going to be people doubting. There's going to be questions asked. But he gave me one of the best advice, right? And all that I'm doing, I would say the number one thing that I did the right way was actually going into fasting. When I was recommended going into fasting, number one thing, I got my answer the quickest that way. But he gave me another idea that was exceptional, that was wonderful, that was, I would say, backed up my fasting and really put everything in confirmation for me, like really put everything in perspective for me, and made me truly see that I was doing the right decision. He told me, this is exact words, he said, you know what, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Put it in neutral. And yes, actually, before he did ask me if I was fasting, I did say I was fasting. So yeah, there was that. We covered the fasting aspect. I was already in fasting. It was about to be a year that I was fasting, right? So next thing he said, did you read any books about marriage? And I was like, no, not really. He said, well, did you read any books about anything at all? It's, spiritual books about having a godly wedding and having a kingdom marriage and having all. And I'm like, nope, I think I missed that part. He's like, all right, so that's what you need to do. He said, winter wedding. And I said, this is when it's planned for. He said, all right, this is what I need for you to do. I need for you to put it in neutral. And when he said put it in neutral, I was like, wait, what does that mean? He said, put it in neutral. He's like, put a pause to things, to the planning, to all the good stuff. He said, I want you to go read 2 books. And after you read these 2 books, he said, you got to read them pretty quickly, because you said that your wedding date is coming up, and whatever it is that you need to do, you need to be able to do it on a timely manner. And I said, okay. He said, I need for you to read 2 books. And I said, okay. And he said, and actually, when God put this on the spirit, I went ahead and grabbed those 2 books so I can show it to you guys. One of them I actually posted on my Instagram because it was just phenomenal. And that's the one I read first, which is The Sacred Search by Gary Thompson. Sacred Search by Gary Thompson. If you are young, or not even young, period, if you are getting married and you want to make sure that you're making the right decision, you want to make sure that you've asked all the right questions, you want to make sure that you are truly right with the choice that you're making, you have to read this book. Have to read this book. And I would say read this one first, right? So this is the first book that he recommended that I read. And this is the second book that he recommended that I read, which is from Joshua Harris. It's Boy Meets Girl, Say Hello to Courtship. And this one is really good as well. I really, really enjoyed it, but I would have to say this one is my favorite. It kind of presents you with all the questions that you should have asked, and if you didn't ask, that you better get to asking. So, and I'll list them down below if you want to actually go ahead and take a jab at them and read them before you make a decision. Even if you are already married, even if you are already young and married, still read these books. They're really good books. They're really great books that you should read, and it could change things for you. It changed my perspective entirely. And I did just that as he told me. I went ahead and I bought those books on Amazon really, really quickly, and they were Prime. And I read them. And while I was reading them, they were so interesting and they were so satisfying, and like answering every question that I really had. I couldn't put them down. Like, I just kept reading. And then I recommended them to all my sisters who were not yet married. I was like, you guys need to go read this book. And when they went ahead and did read the book, and it was a blessing. It was a true blessing. He blessed me, and I just want to bless you guys. So, I would say to go read the book, and so that you can truly be sure that the decision that you're making is because it is a lifetime decision, right? Being married is not something that ends at the ceremony. If anything, it begins at the ceremony, right? So it begins at the ceremony, and it should go on for eternity. Not to say that the ones that don't go on for eternity You should blame yourself for that. No, not at all. But if that's the type of marriage that you're looking for, the marriage that goes on for eternity, you want to be well equipped. You want to be well prepared for that. So I will say that it's very, very important that you prepare yourself, and preparing yourself is really going in on your decision in prayer, like truly making prayer a part of it, truly making God a part of your decision. And okay, so this is another thing that I wanted to say is when I went on fasting and praying, I would call my fiance and I'd say, well, I want you to fast with me, and I want you to pray with me, and I want you to do all these things with me. And he would say like, yeah, babe, no problem. That's not a problem. Because we prayed together anyways. Like we would pray together anyways, even with the fact that we lived in different countries. But when our time allowed, in the sense like, he didn't go to school before me, or I didn't go to school before him, we would pray together. Or I wasn't at work, we would pray together. Even on my way to work, he would call me and pray with me while I'm on my way to work. So that's something that we kind of was doing anyways. But I said, I want us to pray specifically on that. That's what I said. I said, I want us to pray specifically on our marriage, because like I said, I was really searching to be sure that this marriage was it. Like, this is what God wanted for me. I'm not going to ruin the book for you, because I want you to have your own experience with the book. I want you to read the book and get your questions answered. So I'm not going to ruin the book for you, but I will say this, that the book is going to challenge you and basically ask you if you asked the most important questions. Like, did you ask the most important questions? And you're going to find that if you're truly, truly honest with yourself, you will find that you didn't ask the bulk of the questions, right? And it's not because we're dumb, and it's not because we're stupid. It's not because of anything at all. It's just the fact that we don't know, right? Because the ideal is we're getting married. We've never been married before. We've never been married before. We've never been a wife before. We've never been a husband before. So the idea is, did we ask all the appropriate questions? Chances are we did not. Did we ask all the questions that we're going to later have after the marriage? Chances are we did not, because why? We've never been in that position before. But I do want to challenge you in the sense that after you read this book, should you decide to read it, because it is a great book, that when these questions come up, and you're going to find that they're great questions, and they're going to be things that you actually want to know after, seeing this, I want you to not be afraid to actually ask those questions, because will that feeling arise? Will that feeling come to life that, oh my God, if I ask them, will they think that I'm doubting them? Or will they feel as if, will they feel as if, I don't trust them and all that? Yeah, you may feel that way. But I want to tell you this, that if that person that you're with truly loves you and truly cares about your security, and you feeling that you're secure, not just the fact that they know that you're going to be secure, or they feel as though you're going to be secure, but rather that you feel that you're secure, they're not going to have a problem with those questions. They're not going to have a problem with those questions. They're not, and if they're serious about what they're doing, and they themselves want to be truly sure about the decision that they're making, they're not going to have a problem with you wanting to be sure. As a matter of fact, it may bring up questions that maybe he wanted to know, or she wanted to know, that they didn't know to ask you, right? So it's not like you're going to be asking them questions and not answering questions. You're going to want to answer those questions for that person too, even if they are secure, to give them more security. There are questions of love and security, and things that people who are about to make a lifelong commitment wants to know, right? And you may not know that you want to know them, but I'm telling you this, after you read that book, you're going to want to know them. Like, that's just what it is. You're going to want to know them. I'm going to have the books posted below. Read them. And if you have read them already, like if you're already married or you're not married and you have read them already, because I know a lot of youth pastors, they recommend them. They say, like, if you're planning on being married or you want to be married, like my pastor, he says that you need to read a certain amount of books before, like books about marriage, before you even get married. Like, before you even put a date, like, you need to be sure. Like, what's more interesting, which I was not going to mention, which is a really big part of why I love these books, is like, there's quizzes in them. There's quizzes and there's tests in them. Excuse me. There's quiz and there's tests in the books that you can test your significant other and they can test you, which is really fun. They can test you, and it's not, I don't want you to be afraid, like, oh, once I read this book, it might ruin everything. It really won't ruin everything. If anything, you'll learn things that you didn't know about that person, which will serve you in your marriage, or you will just validate that you knew everything that you should have known, and they will validate that they knew everything they should have known about you during your courting time and all that. So it's always going to be a good thing. It's never going to be like, oh, this book ruined. So it's nothing to fear. Definitely read the books and make the decision. I think that being that I am a newlywed and being that I am making new experiences, I'm going to come back on here and I'm going to share with you guys like everything that God puts in my spirit to share with you guys, but also things that I feel is useful. Also things that I feel like has been useful to me in my time of being married. And maybe I'll share a little bit more of my story so that you guys get to know me a little bit better. So yeah, and if you have any questions as far as, you know, being young and getting married, I haven't been married forever, but I can answer some questions because I had really great guidance. Or you having any doubts or any concerns or just any questions at all, like just pop them down below and I will love to sit and chat with you, or well, I guess not sit and chat, right, since it's going to be a comment, but rather answer your questions. I will always reply to those questions. I will always reply to those questions and make it possible to reach out to me and all that good stuff, because I do want to be a helpful hand. The reason I say this mostly is because, not because like just because I had a lot of help. I feel like when I was making my decision, I had a lot of help, a lot of support, a lot of people who cared for me. And sometimes sometimes everybody doesn't have that support. And I found that a lot of people will like to give you advice based on their experience. And not everyone's experience is great, right? So not everyone's experience is great. And because of that, you don't want to base the decisions that you're making on someone else's experience, right? Solely because everyone didn't have a great experience at marriage. Everyone did. Those are pretty much things that I wanted to talk about, really. And I will say I'm gonna come back on here and tell me what you want to see next. Like, I want to come back on here and talk about planning a destination wedding from the States, because while it sounds extremely fun, it is extremely challenging, extremely challenging. But it is a lot of fun, I must add. It is a lot of fun. And it's far less costly than having a wedding here in the States. So that I want to come back and talk to you guys about, like, kind of tell you my experience with planning a destination wedding and how that all went. So yeah, I'm really happy that I was able to come on here and talk to you guys about that and just share my experience of preparing to get married at the age of 24, and how I am more than 1,000% sure that I did the right thing. And not did the right thing, but my decision was good and the decision I made was secure, and I'm really happy about that. I just want you guys to have the opportunity that I had to have security and be sure about the decision that I made. So lastly, mini makeup tutorial, more so getting to talk to you guys about that very important topic. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much for listening to me. It was nice having you. Thank you.